to Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I'm going to do an update for you guys of my reading. Not much to say about podcasts. I did start a podcast. I did start the series of episodes that history. The rest is history. I started the French Revolution one. There's a couple of their episodes series I'm finishing up. I'm trying to finish up because that's the podcast where I have a lot downloaded from them because there's a lot of topics that get me really excited. So I've downloaded a lot of those videos. So I'm trying to go through those quickly. So which means that the other podcasts go on the back burner a little bit. Like they're all my book podcast and my other history podcast. I did kind of go into the whole listening to an episode on God Medieval. I listened to their episode on this morning actually on their the history of the Mercia Kingdom of Mercia, which is one of the and that made me of course think of Bernard Cornwell's series, his series about the Last Kingdom series, because that's the same time period. In that book talks about these other kingdoms, like all the different kingdoms and Alfred the Great showing up and making them all Christian and all that. And so yeah, that was kind of fun to listen to that one. So yeah, this is my update on podcasts. I don't have a lot to say this time around. And as far as I haven't bought anything the last couple days. I haven't done anything. I've been trying to restrain myself. And just because of a day off does not mean I need to go to the bookstore, the walking distance bookstore. And we'll see what time, and who knows, when my dad gets home, he might mention, do you want to go somewhere? And I'll say, Books A Million. And I did just film letting you guys know how my goals went this year, which I hope that was interesting for people and not boring. And I also, what was I gonna say? I forgot. I lost my train of thought. What else I was gonna say? Well, anyway, I don't have any other updates as far as non-book related stuff. So let's get to the actual how my reading is going. So I am making progress on War of the Roses by Dan Jones. The Fall of Plantagenets and the Rise of the Tudors. So I'm up to the point where Henry VI, he is now an adult, so he's ready to make decisions on his own, but he can't. He's incapable of making decisions on his own because he has been on the throne since he was a little baby, little toddler, and other people have always made decisions for him. So he doesn't know how to make a decision, how to be a good leader. Kind of sucks. And you have his two uncles are trying to, take control of him. He has the Duke of Suffolk, who is not his uncle, I don't think, but he becomes better skilled at puppeteering him and gaining power. And so he gains. Now that does not last long. He ends up eventually something goes wrong and he fails. And I think there's part of that also has to do with Richard III. I think it's Richard III. Well, he's Richard Duke of York at this point. I want to say he is Richard III, but I don't know. He shows up, and he does not like how things are going right now under the Henry VI. Everyone's at war. Everyone's fighting. They're not getting along with France, which that's no surprise. And they want to control everybody and build their empire. And Richard Duke of York thinks he can do it better, but it's not easy. He really struggles to gain power. And eventually, when Henry VI gets sick at one point, his mind starts to go a little bit. I mean, he eventually gets over that, but it does happen, and they do let Richard the Duke of York be the contemporary king, or at least be in that position. Like, he's not officially the king, obviously, but kind of like, it's like how in Game of Thrones, if the hand were running things, he's like the hand. And which they do use that term, and they do use that term, I think. And he's really happy because he thinks he can do better, and he even, he deals with some of the people that he think are a threat. I don't remember which guy it was that he thought was, maybe it was the Duke of Suffolk, who he had arrested. Because he's temporarily in charge, so it's like they'll do what he says. And so he's out of the way. Like I said, I think it is the Duke of Suffolk. And for a while, Henry, Richard is, doing pretty, taking care of business. And a lot of people thought he was a better ruler. I think that the country was doing a lot better under his rule. Not everybody liked it, though, and a lot of people wanted him gone and didn't like him running things, and then eventually Henry does get better and gets rid of him, and Richard is all pissed about that. He's like, I was doing good. I was making things better for your kingdom, and now you're firing me? You're getting rid of me? And Duke of Suffolk is released, and his wife, Margaret, Henry VI's wife, Margaret, gets pregnant with their son, whom they call Edward, named after Edward III. And so war is still going on. It's crazy. People are still at war with each other and butting heads and trying to control King Henry and Henry VI. And things are not looking good for him. It's like, this is what happens when you have a king that became king when he's little and he doesn't understand what's going on. That he's incapable of making his own decisions. It's like no one will. This is why, you shouldn't have someone be a king that young, because can you really trust the other people to rule in your name in a way that, as an adult, that is going to be good for you in the kingdom? It's very frustrating. And so this is all, and that's where I am right now. I read a little bit, and Richard, Duke of York, is still trying to get back the throne and everything, because he still thinks he would be the better option. And let's see, let me look. What was the last thing I read? He does. Okay, so yeah, I remember I remember that Henry and his advisors were willing to let Richard, Duke of York, have some power. At least be part of the council. And he didn't love it, but it did give him a sense of power, I think. It did give him some authority. And he and his followers, because he does obtain some followers, he's biding his time at this point and thinking, okay, for the sake of the kingdom, I will work with the king and accept it. And I think this is the last thing I read, was that he was called to King Henry to work with them. So that's where I am in this. And so it says, if you're a fan of Game of Thrones or The Tudors, then Dan Jones' swashbuckling entertaining slice of medieval history. Oh, it does say medieval. Okay, so it is medieval. I wasn't sure if this would be considered Renaissance or medieval. Will be right up your alley. But I mean, it's the difference is this is nonfiction and they're comparing it to fiction. But I can see but I do feel like nonfiction can read like fiction. For me, that's nonfiction works when it's something that it can read like nonfiction. It can read like fiction, I mean, that's why I like true crime and narrative nonfiction I really like that. So that is what's going on, and I have not picked up this one yet, but I do have it. I dog-eared some pages where a good place to stop is, because it seems like it's a lot of continue. There's no page breaks. but they're shorter stories and or novellas in this book. So there's like 3 in here. So I don't have a lot to say on that one. And last night, literally last night, I started the Rossetti letter. I decided to pick it up. This is one of those stories where you have the past storyline, and then a character is looking back, like has found something from the past, like a document or something, or a particular item, and they do the research. So the reader gets both the present day story where someone's doing the research, and then you also have, as they're doing the research, you see the story of the events play out. So that's one of these books. And I've literally only read the prologue and then the first chapter, but I was starting to fall asleep anyway, so I don't have anything to say about either one of these books yet. And the one I want to most talk about is this big boy, Lord of the Rings. So I just finished book 2 in the Two Towers, and I'm now on book 3. Where are book 4? Because book 2 in the Two Towers is book 3 in the overall Lord of the Rings. And I've noticed that, so what's interesting is that the scene that book 2, part 2 ends, book 2 in the Two Towers ends with them going to talk to Saruman, because they won Helm's Deep, they defeated Saruman, and they're going to go see him. And there's actually a whole chapter where they're traveling to go see Saruman, go to Isengard. And which was not the most fun chapter to read. It kind of reminded me of the Council of Elrond, where only this scene wasn't even in the movie. They didn't even include that scene. Like with the Council of Elrond, they obviously included in the movie. But one interesting moment as they first start their trip to Isengard through the, I think, Fangorn Forest, an interesting moment between Legolas and Gimli that I really like to show their friendship, their developing friendship, is, so Gimli is talking about these caves at Helm's Deep that he would love to see because they have these beautiful crystals that he wants to see, and he's so excited and passionate about it. And Legolas' first thought is, I wouldn't want to go there, and that, of course, because then the dwarves are going to show up and destroy it. And Gimli tells, no, it's too beautiful and pure to do that. And Legolas says, what I want to go see is Fangorn Forest. Like, actually go into Fangorn Forest, because that forest, he thinks it's so cool and so beautiful in his own way. And Gimli's like, hell no, I don't want to go there. I would never go in there. But then Legolas is like, let's make a deal. You come with me to Fangorn Forest, and I will go into the Helm's Deep caves. And they're like, okay, deal. And I actually really liked that scene, that moment. I think it'd be kind of cool to see it in the movie. Like, it would have been cool to see in the movie, that moment where they're bonding. So, yeah, in the Fellowship, I was disappointed by. It felt like their friendship, becoming a friendship, happened a little too quickly for me. But, it's made up for later in Two Towers. It is made up for when we see their developing friendship, like moments like that. And I did not realize it, but the counting thing is in the book. I thought it was something they just made up for comedy in the movies, but it's actually in the book, where they're counting how many of their kills. Because all of a sudden I start seeing them counting, I've killed this many. And it was really cool to see that it was actually in the movie. Like, Tolkien came up with that, which I wonder, because Tolkien was part of World War I. So I wonder if, to make it easier to cope with the World War I situation, I wonder if they actually did that. Did they count kills? Like, how many of their enemies did they kill? I wonder if they did that to, but yeah, it's morbidly funny that they do that. And I love that it's actually in the book and not just something they put in the movie. Although the way their dialogue in the movie is funnier, I think. A little more modern. And I did note, I do feel like the dialogue, a good way to describe it is it's a lot more formal. And then or at least it reads more formally oftentimes, especially with certain characters in the book than in the movie. Now, the other thing I noticed that the scene when they go to finally get to Saruman is a little different too. Or at least you see more of how Saruman's voice can put you under a spell. We get a little bit more of that. Like, they kind of hint at that in the movie. But you don't see it as much in the movie as you do in the book. Like, in the book, clearly, like, Theoden is, when he first comes face to face with Saruman, he is trying to respond to him, but he can't say anything for some reason. He attempts to, but he just can't say it. And then, finally, he is able to speak. And you have the line that's in the movie. Again, I love seeing lines in the movie that come from the book. They obviously don't include everything, but like they don't do the dialogue words for word in the movie script. But there's a lot of, like, this one starts finally when he's able to say something to Saruman. He's like, "We will have peace when blah blah blah." So that line, that whole speech, that little monologue is in the book. It's a little different, not 100% exactly what is on the screen, but basically it's the same. But it's mostly the same. And of course, the ending of that scene is a little different in the movie. They do something different with it. And they also include the line when he confronts Grima Wormtongue. Wormtongue does say, like, when he's trying to beg for his life, Theoden says, "You would have me crawling on the ground like a beast," or something like that. And I don't know if the way I'm reading it, but it's probably just how the tone I'm, the time. But like, I feel like in the movie, what is, I cannot remember the actor's name who plays Theoden. He's the same guy who plays Captain Smith in Titanic. Is it Bernard Hill? Maybe that's his name. I don't know, but I feel like he puts a lot more emotion into Theoden. But that might just be because it's an actor playing the part, and when I'm reading, I'm just reading it. So I'm reading the actors, so maybe I'm not putting enough emotion as I'm reading. Like, I'm not hearing the emotion or reading it correctly. But there's definitely a lot more emotion, I feel like, while in the book he feels more formal. But again, that maybe before anyone gets all defensive, I acknowledge that could just be me and how I'm reading it. But yeah, in the movie it feels more emotional. Like he feels like a more emotional, angry character. And in fact, another thing that I think I forgot to mention last time is they barely talk about his son Theodred. Like, it is mentioned. He is mentioned, but I think Theoden already knew he was dead in the book. So maybe they're doing that to make it more emotional, because in the movie adaptation he doesn't know, and then he's so under the influence of Sauron and Grima Wormtongue, and just so out of it that he doesn't realize that he's cast his son out and he has died, and he finds out and he's grieving his son's death and the whole thing, and that's when they mention the Cymbeline, the flower that grows there in Rohan, and so, but he already knew, I think. And like I said, the whole thing with, I mentioned this last time about, his nephew, whose name suddenly escapes me at the moment. He was supposed to be gone, but then he is there in the book, but in the movie he isn't there, and when Gandalf leaves, he goes to get him. he finds him and tracks him down. Well, in the book, though, it turns out that there is another character that's brought up. And we meet, but I'm guessing the character isn't as important or isn't as involved in the story, and that's why the screenwriters felt like they didn't need to include him in the movie. I can't remember his name at the moment, but we also, of course, get more history on the Palantir, because it's the last chapter in part 1, and we learn more, we have a better understanding of Pippin and his curiosity, his nosiness. We get it because we're in Pippin's head, and he's very frustrated because he can't sleep, and he is, he's like, I want to know what this Palantir is and what the deal is, and he's kind of annoyed that Mary got to ride back with Gandalf, because Mary got to ask him questions and got to find out answers, and I guess Pippin really likes asking questions and wanting to getting answers about things. So I guess he's very, like, if he was in college, he would be the kid he would love to study and love learning, and I think that's the kind of person the kind of hobbit in this case he is. And then, of course, because of him touching the Palantir, and he's kind of Gandalf is forced to take him to Minas Tirith, and he gets to ask questions. Which is interesting because, he gets traumatized, has this really bad experience with the Palantir, because he's a little too curious, but then he kind of forgets about it until Gandalf forces him to remember. And again, we have another Gandalf funny line where Gandalf is like, I guess I should have started letting you ask questions long before this, because then maybe you wouldn't have been dumb and touched the Palantir in the first place. Or he doesn't say, like, dumb, but, it's kind of funny that he realizes, oh, I guess I should have just let you get away with asking questions, then maybe you wouldn't be so naive. And, so part 2 of Book of the Two Towers is where we're finally back with Sam and Frodo. And so they're traveling along. They have not run into Gollum yet, or / Smeagol yet. But they're kind of traveling along. They're running out of food. They're so tired. There's at one point where Frodo decides to go climb in this plane somewhere, and he almost gets stuck. And the rope comes in handy. The rope that the elves gave him, because originally, like, Sam was really worried about rope, because he was like, I meant to bring a rope. But then it gets left behind, and then the elves offer to give him rope, a special rope. So I thought that was kind of funny, the whole thing, his obsession with rope, knowing that they would probably need it. I thought that was cute. So yeah, that's where I am right now, because we haven't run into Smeagol yet, but it's coming, obviously. It will be at the end of the chapter, because this is called The Taming of Smeagol, is the next the chapter I'm reading, so obviously he's going to show up at the end of the chapter. But, yeah, I am so proud of myself that the progress I'm making with this. And I just remembered the other thing I want to talk about is that I did finish Stranger Things season 5. I'm so happy about that. And I'm one of the few people I think that actually enjoyed season 5. I know a lot of people did not love it. Like, even Terry did not like how things were dealt with at the end, in the climax, and the final confrontation. And I enjoyed it. And of course my first reaction when she's like, I didn't like it, was, okay, I don't know how to respond to that, because I enjoyed it. And, I don't want to be someone who's like, how dare you not love this? Because, she's allowed to have that opinion, and, and I do think some people may have valid criticisms for the series, and I just personally have no qualms with it, at least not yet. But maybe if I watch it again, maybe I'll notice things, or if I listen to other people's opinions, maybe I'll realize, oh, okay, yeah, I get that, fair enough. But I had a good time. I am so happy to have, to finish that. It's bittersweet, though, because I enjoyed it. And I'm sad that it's done. But it's nice to see that some of the actors from that show are, moving on and doing other projects. I think so, anyway. And at least the two, Millie Bobby Brown and Finn Wolfhard. Well, he hasn't done anything lately. But anyway, although I don't know, maybe his parents wanted to go back to school or something. Maybe that's why. Or he's in college. Maybe that could be why he hasn't done anything lately. Like, all these kids could be, like, going to college or something. And maybe that's why. But anyway, so the other thing I decided to start, so I saw on Netflix, because I guess Netflix owns access to AMC stuff, which I was worried about that because there are some stuff, AMC shows that I would like to watch, but, I don't pay for our streaming services. I pay for a couple of them, or at least I did. And, I mean, it seems like there's a lot more AMC shows than I'm into, but it was like, but I'm not going to bug my mom about getting AMC Plus. But anyway, but thankfully Netflix does have some of the AMC shows, which I'm really happy about. And it turns out they have NOS4A2 adaptation, which was made to I think it's 2 seasons. And, reading the descriptions of the episode, because I like to read the descriptions, and I've read the book, so it's not a huge spoiler. I mean, there probably will be some spoilers, because I'm sure I can already tell they're doing it differently. So I read the little descriptions on Google, and it turns, and I think it sounds like 2 seasons are pretty good to cover the whole book, the basic plot of the book. But I'm liking it so far. Although I did not picture Zachary Quinto as Charlie Manx when I was reading the book. That's not who I thought I would cast. I was not picturing him. I don't know. I was picturing someone a little older looking. I mean, I know he's a vampire, so he does look old at first, but like maybe someone more actually looking like NOS4A2. Not exactly like, but like a cross between a modern vampire and NOS4A2, a guy that's bald or something. Generally, that for some reason I was picturing that when I was reading the book at first. But yeah, Zachary Quinto plays Charlie Manx, our antagonist, and so far it's pretty good. I mean, and so far I am enjoying it. It's a pretty good adaptation of the book. They obviously changed some things, and in the way it looks like it's set up is season 1 is covering the whole when Vic is growing up and dealing with this in her first encounter with Charlie Manx. And then season 2 will be the aftermath when she has her son and the whole thing with the guy that is the father of her child, which is his name Bruce, or he just called him Bruce? He just called his son Bruce. I cannot remember, but I love the guy that is the father of her kid. He's such a sweetheart. He's a teddy bear. Yeah, I like him. I really liked his character. I'm curious. Looking forward to see him being cast. Who's gonna play him? And so it's interesting. One of the changes is that Bing actually works. One of his jobs is a janitor at the high school where Vic goes to school. So it was kind of, connecting him, having a relationship with Vic. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting, dynamic, more terrifying dynamic, because she knew him, and when she's warned about him, she refuses to believe it at first. She doesn't want to believe that he's a threat, and that he would be, a bad guy. And we get more of Bing's backstory in the show. I don't remember. I mean, we might have been told the backstory in the book. I've been meaning to reread the book. Maybe once I'm done with the show, I'll reread it. And, her parents are more, we get to know her parents a little bit better. And also, she has some more friends in the story because we're dealing with her high school years. And like we don't see it as much in the book, but there are more, and we meet them in the show, so they can give her friends outside of. And we also there's also a link. One of Charlie Minx's the kids that Charlie Minx kidnaps is actually a friend of Vic's, a little girl that she is bonded with. So that makes it even more personal for her in the first part. And while in the because of course in the second half of the story she does have her own kid, but it's not in the first part when she's a teenager. She doesn't really have any, except for the fact that she has this gift. She doesn't have any reason. Her connection to Manx and why he wants to come after her is a little, like she just happens to be the one that got away. Someone who showed up in his house. But, and at least in this case, there's a personal connection. She has personal stakes in it. And she has more of a motivation to go after Manx. Not just that coincidentally she shows up there because she has a gift and her gift links her to him. So I like that change. And what I like about adaptations, this is why I'm always rooting for adaptations. I'm rooting for them because it gives me a chance to get the visual. Like, I know, again, I say this every time, that when, sometimes I struggle with imagining things. And it helps to have an adaptation that has a visual of, like, either an actor's face, even if it's a bad adaptation, or if it's a decent adaptation, you can picture that if you read the book again, or if you're reading the book for the first time and you watch the adaptation and then you decide to read the book. But yeah, so that was the other thing that I wanted to talk about that I had it slipped my mind. So that is my update right now. So if you watch this one first, please check out my update on my goals video on my goals for 2025. Please watch that. I hope it's not too boring for you guys. I hope you find it interesting. And I hope you are enjoying whatever you're reading, and I will talk to y'all later. All right, bye.